All right, welcome back. And we are kicking off day 5. I cannot believe this is flying by and whoo, not a disappointment at all. I just sent a message to our speakers. I'm like, you guys are just straight fire. I love this. And we are here today with a very, very good friend of mine, Myrna Buckles. I actually just spoke in her summit, which was an incredible gift to society. But I want to tell you a little bit about Myrna so you know who you're hearing from. And I will tell you, if you are one, you don't have to be, but Christ-centered women in their later years seek guidance from Myrna Buckles for their next steps. Myrna, a self-funded missionary and business coach for Nicaraguan women, say that 3 times fast, offers her expertise as a spiritual mentor. Through her legacy builder method, she empowers women to unearth God's legacy, inspiring them to step forward in faith and serve Christ joyfully. You'll be able to connect with Myrna at her legacy in action, but also through her gifts that she brought for you today. So Myrna, welcome, welcome. This is day 5, and we are kicking off with an incredible message here today. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me, Kim.
I'm so glad to hear that. I really kind of want to dive in and just ask you from your perspective, what is a God-given purpose?
Well, so many people have different definitions, and it really comes down to what has God called us to do?
Mm,
And how do you step into it? And everyone steps into it differently and discovers it differently. It's really an intriguing topic.
I love it too. So, someone might be listening right now and go, okay, Myrna, but why? Why do I want to know what mine is? What would your response to that be?
Oh, well, it just it drives everything you do. Once I knew what God told me, wanted me to do, there was nothing that would stop it.
Mm,
Um, there's so much assurance knowing that God called you to do something. When you know that you know that you're doing the thing that God said to do, you just do it. And it takes away a lot of that limiting belief and those things, because it's like, well, he said to do it. And you know what has happened as
yes.
I have stepped into his purpose even more. It is unbelievable. Unbelievable what has happened as a result. And it's the second time something like this has happened to me. And the first time was when I first came to Nicaragua to serve the women. And now this current thing, whew, I he cannot, he surprises us all the time. He's never surprised, but we are.
Yes. When you said, wow, I'm like, that's a verb and an adjective and a noun. It's all the things right there because that completely sums it up.
It
And
does.
day 3 of our summit, I was speaking with Rosie Morocha, one of our fellow authors, and she was talking about when you step into alignment, how you feel just differently, like you're saying. And when I hear you talk about stepping into God's purpose for you, it doesn't mean that the ebbs and flows of human experience are without, right? Obviously, we're human, we still have that human experience, but it's a different way of being. And I
Mhm.
want to hear, I want our friends and our listeners to hear from you. There's a story behind like
Yeah.
you stepping into, helping women in their second chapter of life, finding that God-given purpose. So what is the story behind that? Tell us the juice.
The juice is when I sat down to write my chapter, I decided I would start by looking back, just for the history. I'm kind of a history buff. So I looked back and I was like, wow, every decision God led me to make throughout my life and through our married life as a couple brought us to where we are now. I actually asked my husband, I said, had we not, at one point, we left his family's business, their family farm and ranch. Huge traumatic experience, caused a lot of ripples. And I said, if we had not done that, could we have ever come to Nicaragua? And he said, no.
Mm.
That one decision propelled us to be able to do this. But we didn't do that on our own. God was behind it all. And when we look through our lives, we can see those moments and those decisions that led us to where we are now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The cylinders are firing here because I'm getting excited. That move for you, that was a big move. I am sure fear, uncertainty, right? And if you guys are leaning in right now going, oh, that was a big move, Myrna. Like, how did I find it? So you said something that really clicked, and it's when you looked back.
Yeah.
We know that as humans, we learn in reflection, not
Yeah.
ever in the moment, right? So it's easy for us to look back and see those points where God is interjecting and saying, you're off path, come here, like this is where I want you. I want you to describe for us, in your perspective, when we're out of alignment with God's purpose for us, what are some of the ways we may be feeling or the things that may be coming? And how do we identify, like, ooh, I don't think we're in the design right now. So what would that kind of look like?
It's when things don't feel right and don't work right, and you feel like you're just swimming uphill or swimming uphill. That was a good one. But
Hey,
when
that's hard to do.
but you're going uphill on a snowy hill, for instance. You're just slipping and sliding. And when you're in God's purpose, everything is not perfect. I mean, we all go through those spiritual attacks. And I went through that before I got to here, quite a big one, actually. And it's different than a spiritual attack. You're under attack when you're trying to record interviews for your summit and you have 4 days of no Wi-Fi.
You did it, lady. You did it.
There is, God drives us. I am so driven now to help women in that second season of life. It is like, I cannot not do it. I know we're not supposed to use double negatives, but that's what it is.
Yeah.
There's nothing that will stop me. I went to a hotel, as you know, and got my work done because I couldn't do it at home.
It's
And
just that perseverance. That's amazing.
but it's the drive God puts in us, the desire to serve, to be who He called us to be.
Yes, and right
Mhm.
when we're leaning into that obedience. I know privately you and I have the conversation about obedience quite
Oh yeah.
often. And the fleshy side, the human side of us is going to kick in and say, oh my gosh, that's so uncomfortable. I'm fine over here. Or what would you say to someone who's like, okay, Myrna, I hear you. I'm listening. I'm in that space right now where it's like, I know based on your,
Mhm.
what's the word I'm looking for? Description of like, I'm not in the design right now. I'm feeling those kind of icky ways, but it's so scary being obedient, right? You have had the attacks yourself. Not
Mhm.
only did you go to a hotel, you worked from a coffee shop. You did everything you had to do to be obedient, and that's not easy. So
No.
some humans are just like, I'm going to throw my hands up because it's too hard. It's not worth it. It's too much. I want you to speak to that and say, what does it feel like, honestly, when
Mhm.
you're willing to step into the obedience?
Well, first, I think we all go through the whining and the complaining. Oh, my Wi-Fi is not working. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? But after a couple of days of that, God just basically hit me with a 2x4. I swear He uses those, and said, go to a hotel, woman. And when I suggested it to my husband, he's like, why didn't we think of that before? But because we were stuck in the muck of fear, we didn't see that. We were stuck in that spiritual attack. We didn't see such a clear and easy answer.
Mm.
It's just we don't see things. But no matter what, God has a way of getting our attention, even if we're in fear. And I've been in fear a lot. We moved to Nicaragua. There was a lot of fear involved in that. We left my husband's farm and ranch business with his family. There was so much fear in that. But what happens is, in our case, when we left that business, it pulled us together as a family. We knew we had to do certain things right away to make it work, to be in obedience, because had we split apart and got frustrated with each other, we swapped roles, Kim. My husband was working 24/7. He started staying home with kids. I went back to work.
Well,
He became mom and dad basically a lot of the time, but we did it. And we also knew we had to get plugged into a body of believers that could guide us and lift us up. And we found that. And so we did specific things, when we did that, it was like with a lot of intention. And that takes care of some of the fear. If you can actually listen to God and say, okay, now what are we going to do to make this happen? And yeah, there was a lot of intention involved.
I just, the human side of me, I can't imagine. And we all have our own stories and everything is relative, but those are some big, bold moves that you all
Mhm.
made. And I'm glad you said kind of like tapping into a Christ-centered community, because my question for you is, you know, what are some tips that you
Mhm.
could give our listeners? What are some of the things that helped your family or helped you say, hey, this is hard, and stepping into his design and being obedient, it's not an option. But what
No,
are some of the things that could help ease that transition?
I think, well, we had some problems with family relationships as a result. So I took it upon myself to do some things with my kids, like make Christmas ornaments for the grandparents to send to them, just as a way to stay connected and to stay in relationship, even though it wasn't comfortable. It was not a comfortable situation. And the other thing is, we looked for ways to be in fellowship with other believers. It was important for us. We knew we had to do that, because otherwise you get lost in your own story, your own little loop that plays over and over the things that the relatives had said to us before we left, and the things we were hearing that they were saying after we left. So, you know, so basically be intentional, make choices that will put you in the right place. Um, be sure you're in a body of believers and get into fellowship with believers. Those were the things. So we leaned into God, and we really leaned into that. We did Bible study as a family. We did a lot of things as a family. And that's when we started doing mission work, was when we were in Arizona doing that. So um you can just see God's hand all the way along.
I love that so much. When you step into that design,
Mhm.
you talked about the spiritual attack a little bit, but the
Yeah.
truth is there's the earthly side where the humans who get upset because you are not making decisions anymore that fit their opinions or their expectations of you. That's really, really hard. So
Mhm.
tapping into a community of believers and people who understand and respect your decisions to lean into his design, I think that's a piece of accountability, but it's critical, Myrna. It's very critical that you have that,
Yeah.
so that you're not feeling so alone and isolated. And your gift is incredible. I want to talk about that a little bit because if you are a woman in that second half of life, like Myrna and I are, and you're questioning yourself, you're looking for more, you're looking for fulfillment. I think, Myrna, you'll agree with me that time is our most precious commodity. Absolutely. And it's incredible that you're gifting us that time to help these women really explore what this could look like. So talk to us a little bit about your gift.
Well, one of the things I know from my own life is that when we do have a big change in our lives, like retire or the kids leave home or whatever, we feel like we've lost that sense of fulfillment. We as women have amazing gifts to give. Like we're all very solution oriented. We have had to solve lots of problems over the years,
Mhm.
and we feel like that's not getting used. We're not of value to anyone anymore. So I put this quiz together and it guides everyone who does it through a series of questions to find out what direction their God-given purpose is. It helps them discover that through the layers, and then they can hop on a call with me and we can talk about it and pray about it and find out what they want to do next.
Quiz is just awesome because we talked so much here in just this short conversation about the importance of reflection. So when you're able to sit down and be honest with yourself through Myrna's quiz and answer these questions the way that you might not be willing to open up to a spouse yet, right? Because you're not understanding what you're being called for, or it's hard to share with family what you feel like you're being called to do. And so this is a very safe space for you to be able to open up and be honest and answer this quiz. And then the follow-up call to explore, what does this mean for me? What are my next steps? How can I lean into this design? This is a beautiful gift. And, my daughter, she's only 9 years old right now, but sometimes my heart truly gets very heavy. And I look at my husband and I say, well, what is my life going to look like when I'm an empty nester? So what you're saying about women in the second half is, ooh, it can feel heavy. And when you're trying to do it alone, I can't imagine that anything positive will come out of that. So this quiz is a gift, your time is a gift, and I just really honor your contribution to the book, but also to God's obedience. What you're doing is you're bringing people into the kingdom. You're giving us a deeper, richer experience during our time here. So friends, please, click the link below this video and answer the quiz honestly, and then have a conversation with Myrna because there is no better guide. There is no better mentor. She's done some pretty scary, powerful, obedient things in her life. And I can't imagine. I just can't. So thank you so much for your time and for your willingness to share. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and for this opportunity to share with people, other people who are in this same boat, that they're not alone.
Absolutely. Grab that quiz. You'll thank us later. Bye for now, my friends. Thank you again, Myrna.
You're welcome.